Welcome back to episode 329 of the Tall Boy Radio podcast. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? Well, that beer is flowing in a very interesting direction. We're going to be talking to a gentleman about a little bit of history, a very important bit of history, and a very interesting and fascinating bit of history. But before we do that, let's talk to a man who's, well, he doesn't go back that far in history, but near enough.
They appreciate that, Beans. Thank you very much. Evening all, evening the world. I hope you all well out there in listener land. I hope today's treated you well. Here in the UK, it's the 1st of April today. We're recording it on April Fool's Day. Let's hope that there's no foolish comments made by us or guests as such tonight. I'm hoping that's not the case. I really enjoy episodes where we have guests on, and particularly guests that are first-time guests with us. And it's going to be incredible what we're going to talk about. It's a subject that both myself and Beans are sort of not mildly fascinated, but I have a real interest in this particular subject. So can't wait till we delve into this and looking forward to where the episode goes.
Indeed, indeed. So without further ado, Jeremiah, did you want to say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Beans Gas, thank you so much for having me on. I'm pumped to be here. We have an exciting hour ahead of us. I have had a fascination with Billy the Kid since I was a kid. Mainly my brother and I. We grew up in the Young Guns era. Grew up in the '90s, so we were a product of that whole Young Guns 1 and 2, Emilio Estevez, Kiefer Sutherland culture, and that sort of it spawned this whole lifelong obsession with Billy the Kid, and I just never grew out of it. So we started a nonprofit, and we just set out to really immerse ourselves in all the history about it.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's a very, very good site there that people can go and find. I will add notes into the show notes where people can find it. I'll put a link in there as well, so you can go and have a look. You know, peruse some of the stuff on the store as well. Hopefully, spend a little bit of money and send some your way. That'd be fantastic. So, like you say, you became same as us, I think, Gaza.
Young Guns. Young Guns 1 and 2 was incredible. Loved it. Loved the soundtrack. Loved the film. Loved the characters. And again, we went through a real phase of being slightly more so than mildly fascinated by it, and just that whole sort of genre, and it was incredible. And we grew out of it, did we, as such? I don't really know. But I was curious and mildly fascinated just around the story, around the intrigue, around Billy the Kid, and from the bits of reading that you do, it's like, well, actually, there was lots of people that said it was this guy, and lots of people said it was this guy, and lots of people said it was this, and just that whole actually, who was Billy the Kid? And that whole sort of intrigue around that. So I can't wait to dive into this episode, and obviously you can sort of shed some light on that and everything that you do. But it was similar to yourself. Growing up, it was something that really piqued both our interests, really. Can't wait till we get into it.
Indeed. So guys, like Gaz said there, who was Billy the Kid? So I think growing up, there was always that idea that it was one of his sobriquets, one of his pseudonyms. It was always Billy the Kid. Was he William Antrim? Was he William H. Bonney? Was he Henry McCarthy? We've got a little bit of a better indication now, though. Do you want to share a little bit about that mystery?
Well, that is exactly what it is. It's a mystery. I think one of the biggest misconceptions in Billy the Kid is probably in his lifetime, he was never actually called Billy the Kid. That term didn't actually circulate till probably some of the newspapers, some of the dime store novels picked it up, maybe the last 6 months or so of his life. So it's very likely Billy never was called Billy the Kid. Some people called him the Kid as a nickname. Billy was a common one. But yeah, probably never once did anybody ever call him to his face Billy the Kid. So that's a common misconception. I think the highest likelihood is that he was probably Henry McCarty. And I can't say that with a great deal of certainty. There's no birth certificate. There's no origin. It's just, I think that's the historical consensus. And the rest are nicknames and pseudonyms that he used along the way.
Wow. Oh, yeah. And so, I mean, in terms of Billy the Kid, I have a book here that I've purchased as well, which is this tale, how accurate it is open for discussion.
Oh
So
yeah.
the authentic life of Billy the Kid by certain
Uh-huh.
Pat Garrett, and Pat Garrett obviously had a little bit of a hand in his tale. So you mentioned there then your love of the films, Young Guns 1, Young Guns 2. Young Guns 2 came about to be, and it starts off with what looks like an old Billy, and it's brushy Billy Roberts out in the desert wanting to tell his story. Just out of interest, how much do you buy into that story of brushy Billy Roberts?
0%.
That pisses on your father, does it?
I know. I've already I can hear people turning off the podcast now. They're like, this guy could go to hell. I'm not going to listen to what he says. It makes a great story, man. And I have talked about this with other historians, and I think the consensus across the board is damn, I wish it was true. I wish that there was some romantic story of Billy the Kid escaping Pat Garrett's gun and living to be the ripe age of 90, growing old in Hyco, Texas, which is like an hour from my house. I've been to that town. They worship the idea. And I think it's a super cool story. It would open up, man, another 50 years of Billy's life that I could read about. But it's not there, man. The history, it just doesn't support it. It's a romantic idea and it's a cool movie, but no, it's 0% accurate.
In terms of sort of 0% accurate then, and we've spoken a little bit just about sort of Young Guns and stuff. We'll get into a little bit, perhaps the history of Billy the Kid as such, but how accurate then were his sort of traveling companions when you looked at the film? So, in the film they portray, I mean, one guy, not I was fascinated by, but I really enjoyed sort of Jose Chavez and that character. Was that a real person? Was how accurate was that portrayed? And in terms of, the band of brothers as such that were portrayed in the film, how accurate is that to real life?
I think they got it maybe, I don't know, an arbitrary number, maybe 50%.
Right.
Jose Chavez was very much an accurate, well, it wasn't an accurate portrayal, but he was a real life person.
Okay.
He was a member of the original Regulators. His role is it's fairly close to accurate. He's quite an interesting guy. He was actually the first project we took on at the coalition. He did not have a grave. When he was originally buried, after the turn of the century, I'm going to lie, but probably I think like in the 1910s, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
He was buried in New Mexico. Headstone got taken away by family and never replaced. So we thought, well, shit, we got to fix this.
Yeah.
So it was the first project we undertook. We put a brand new large marker up to sort of commemorate his historical involvement. But he lived a fascinating life. After the whole Young Guns thing, he became a town deputy for several years. Then eventually he murdered a couple of people and got sentenced to death. Spent about 12 years in the penitentiary in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Was paroled and then grew old and died in Milagro, New Mexico.
Wow.
I mean,
I love that character.
Yeah.
I really, really love that character. He was brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is about those films, and it is the glitz and glamour of Hollywood thrown onto, sparkled over a little bit of history. The people, like you say, like guys asked the question there, was he real? Well, he was, and like Josiah Doc Skurlock, those folks, all real people for the most part. And how close they were is obviously, like you say, open for interpretation. But that is a wonderful project that you undertook there. It is a great thing to do. That these, irrespective of whether you love them from the film or not, these people are genuine pieces of history, aren't they?
And that's the important part. I mean, I love the character too. I thought Lou Diamond Phillips, he was just awesome in the movie. It was this, he was this like awesome knifesman, and he had a lot of memorable quotes, and it was an awesome character. But the real story of Chavez is fascinating. He was a big part of history. He was a big part of the Southwest, Billy the Kid. He did a lot of good things and a lot of bad things in his life, and he still has family members that are alive that are very well connected to him in that area where his headstone is where he's buried. Matter of fact, several of his family members came out and participated in the sort of a second funeral for him when we put up the headstone. So he's a real human being with real family members that have a strong memory of him and care about his legacy.
That's phenomenal.
It is, and I was going to ask about that. And I think you've almost just answered it. Was have his and were his descendants sort of involved in supporting you guys with that new headstone and everything else? But I think how did that happen? Did you contact them and sort of track them down and say we're thinking of doing this, or was it something that they'd heard about and then contacted you? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I wish I could take credit for that, but I can't. As much as my brother, who's my sort of partner in this, and he's far smarter than I as far as the subject goes. He spent probably close to 2 years locating the original grave.
Wow.
And he got on Google Maps, and he knew about where it was at, right? So he's literally zoomed in on Google Maps, going just inch by inch, bit by bit, covering just dozens and dozens of square miles on Google Maps until he finds what he thinks is the grave, and then pins it, reaches out to the ranch owner, and they confirm it through family. This was about 2 years worth of research to find his grave, which had kind of been lost to history for some time. And, the rest, as I say, is history. But yeah, my brother did a lot of that research.
Brill.
Yeah, fair play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that's it. There's a lot of dirty work to be done in the background. You know what I mean? The paperwork and the digging, because so much gets lost over the years, doesn't it? So even things like photographs of Billy the Kid, for a long time it was believed there was just the one photograph, wasn't there?
I would still argue that there probably only is one photo. But we can fight about that in a little bit if you want to.
I'm just curious. Because obviously, you know what I mean. There's the picture of him playing croquet and what have you that have been valued at just crazy sums. But there's question marks over it as to the authenticity of those photographs, isn't there?
There's a lot of questions. I think there's only one widely accepted, and that is the tintype that I think everybody has seen.
Yeah,
it was taken in Fort Sumner. Yep, there you go. The tintype is the cover on the Authentic Life. It was taken in Fort Sumner, probably outside of what's called Beaver Smith's Saloon. We don't know the photographer. He was probably, at that time, they had traveling photographers that would come around and take photos. And the tintypes were printed out in sets of 4. So that's just how they came out of the machine, so to speak. And Billy distributed 4 of them. One of them was lost in a fire. One of them was gifted to a girlfriend and lost. One of them was given to a stable owner named Diedrich, and that's the one that we have now. And another one was given to Pat Garrett, the author of that book, and he loaned it to a publisher, and it's disappeared. And well, that whole story is historians have always hoped that there is a lost photograph out there somewhere in somebody's drawer, trunk, in some attic, and it will resurface eventually. But right now, there's one.
I mean, it has to, doesn't it? And these things have a habit of sort of turning up, 20, 30, 40, 100 years later, whenever it may be. Somebody will have that photo, and it, as you said, it'll be in a book. They will have put it in a book and closed the book or something, or they'll put it in an attic or whatever. You'd like to. I suppose the romantic in me likes to think that it still exists somewhere, as opposed to it's been, destroyed or it's been shredded by accident or whatever it may be. There's got to be, it has to be there. The romantic in me wants to believe that it's there. And can you imagine the clamor? If it resurfaces, you'd be like, oh wow, what would that go for?
Yeah, I don't know.
100%.
Like,
and we still see little nuggets that show up here and there. And so I agree. The romantic in me wants to believe that it's out there and we're going to find it. Somebody's going to open Meemaw's chest and they're going to go, holy shit, who is this guy? And they'll go to the internet and it'll go to auction. And the last sold for $2.6 million. So go through your grandma's trunk. If you got Billy's photo, you're going to be a millionaire.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got people now scrabbling and thinking, I'm sure I remember the photo at some point. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, my fear is it's been lost for 140 plus years. It may very well have been destroyed.
No, dude, come on.
That's just
got to be optimistic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's just a cynic in me. The odds aren't great, especially with, like you say, the other photographs that turn up, so many question marks that surround them. Like you say, we do know that there was 4 of those photographs taken, and we do know that maybe they're out there somewhere, or maybe they've been destroyed,
maybe
lost. Yeah. So you mentioned Jose Chavez's gravestone. What about Billy the Kid? Can we still go and visit his gravestone?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's interned in Fort Sumner, New Mexico. Easy to find on a map. It's a pretty small town, but his grave, he was buried the next day after he was killed. His grave still stands, and it's still marked. There's a cage there, and you can stop and pay your respects to Billy's grave. It's almost certainly still there. There's some people out there that will speculate otherwise, but um, it's there's an overwhelming preponderance of evidence that Billy still sits within probably a few feet of where the headstone is today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because that headstone's gone missing a couple of times, hasn't it? The Billy the Kid one.
Yeah, so there's actually two headstones. There's the big, large one that we've all seen, the Powell's headstone. It was referenced in Young Guns, but that was placed way decades after Billy's death. The one at the foot of Billy, the smaller stone, has been stolen. Oh gosh, I think 3 times. It disappeared for 20 years one time and sat in somebody's garage. And now it's bolted down. They've got this prison style wrought iron case around it to where, it'd take an act of God to get it now. You have to break inside a jail twice to get it.
Wow. Just going back to, and I spoke about, sort of Jose Chavez, and there was obviously Doc Scurlock, and it was in terms of the characters, was there anybody that was known to associate with Billy or travel with Billy that perhaps wasn't portrayed in the films and you perhaps wouldn't know? Because obviously there's characters that you would associate with him, but were there any that actually were known to be with him that weren't really portrayed within the films or were dropped from the films for whatever reason?
Oh, there are lots. I'd have to count on my hand the regulators that were portrayed in Young Guns, maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But in reality, the whole regulator group existed for about 6 months.
Right.
They were active at their peak during the 5-day battle in Lincoln. The McSween, when they burned the McSween home and stood against the cavalry. At their peak, they were probably about 40 or 50 strong.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, I mean, there was probably a core group of about 15 that we consider the core regulators who rode strong with Billy. And then there were another, 20 or 30 that were local farmers and ranchers that sort of were sympathizers to the cause that joined along. But I would say there's probably about 15 core regulators. And that ebbed and flowed a little bit. But at their strongest, they were probably close to 40 or 50.
Wow.
Just so happens, actually, I do have the word regulator tattooed on my ankle.
You do?
I do.
You don't want to tell the story as to why they do it?
I don't want to tell. No. Mate, it was covered by Gil's name. Ultimately.
Yeah, we won't. Let's not go there. His wife's there, so let's not go there. It's not her name. Let's not go there.
I'm not going to tell you where my regulator tattoo is.
Oh, okay. You got to now, yeah. You can't do that.
You don't have to show us, but you can tell us.
It's not for polite company.
Oh, it's got to be. You've said it's got to be a butt cheek, surely. Come on.
If it's not, it's a lot of letters to put on there. And fair play to
you. Couple more tall boys, and we'll get into that.
Brilliant.
Amen. So, in terms of the films, there, you mentioned it. How close are they? The events that they portrayed. We know that the attack on the McSween house, happened. That's a part of history. We know about the Lincoln County Wars. We know about a good Sheriff Brady and the Murphy Dolan faction and all those bits. They're there or thereabouts. It'd be lovely if Murphy was killed in the way that he was in the films, but I know that didn't happen. How close are the films, though?
It depends on the film. Young Guns itself, I don't know, maybe 50%, to give an arbitrary number. I think it was a Hollywood rendition. I like to feel like at the core there was a lot of it that they got right. Emilio Estevez will always be my favorite portrayal of Billy the Kid in my heart. Maybe that was because my first exposure. I feel like that they really embodied what I think the spirit of Billy was. But there were just a lot of things that they got wrong. And I don't know that it was malicious, but it was just to make TV better. It was the magma. They had to condense a lot of things to make it fit. So I don't know if it was bad history as much as it was just, it's Hollywood cinema.
Yeah. Which was the bit that disappointed you? Obviously, subsequently having sort of researched and understand Billy the Kid and his life and the regulators and everything else surrounding that. Which was the bit then from Young Guns that, in a way, disappointed you the most? So when you watch the film, you're like, oh my God, that's incredible, it's amazing. And now subsequently, because you've picked up the story and you understand, which bit was most misrepresented, I suppose, and which bit disappoints you the most?
Yeah, so John Fusco, who's the director behind Young Guns, he has elected to really run with the whole brushy bill line. And
Yeah.
there's a Young Guns 3. There's a Guns 3 that's I've been assured is coming out. They have not started production, but it's as certain as anything can be in Hollywood. And the anticipation is they're going to continue the storyline that's going to sort of track Brushy's legacy post, you know, dying in Maxwell's house or escaping death in Maxwell's house. And so I guess that part disappoints me that they chose to continue Billy's story through the eyes of Brushy. That's probably the most disheartening thing for me,
Yeah.
because as romantic as it is, I think it kind of does a disservice to history.
Right.
Yeah. So was it July 14th, 1881? Was that the day that Billy the Kid was shot? Am I right in saying?
That is correct.
The interesting thing about July the 14th is here's another Billy the Kid, but it's equidistant between our birthdays. He's the 7th of July, I'm the 21st. So slap bang
in the middle. Yeah.
Years don't go back quite that far.
No,
not far off.
No. We're basically within 2 weeks of each other. So we're the same age. We're within 2 weeks. So I'm 7th of July. Ad is 21st of July. But yeah, 14th slap bang right in the middle. There you go. Done.
Designed in the stars.
This is absolutely.
Yeah. This episode's 52 years in the making. Nearly 53.
Nearly 53, yeah. Let's not talk about that.
No, let's not. So yeah, I mean, there's no part of anybody that believe. Well, if we're saying that the Brushy Billy Roberts story isn't true, and I'm inclined to agree with you, it's very, very unlikely. The Billy the Kid was definitely shot and killed that day, wasn't he, by Patrick Garrett? What was the nature of their relationship then? Because they are portrayed as pals in those films.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of Billy's story that's been grossly overrated, and that they got a little wrong in Young Guns. And this has been, a hotly debated thing among historians. I don't really believe there was a friendship there. There was an association. They certainly knew each other. They were aware. Was there a true friendship in the nature that we think of it? I don't really think so.
Yeah.
Pat Garrett, when he originally arrived in that area of New Mexico, he was kind of looking for work. And there's some stories that him and Billy, worked cattle together and some sheep farms, and maybe there was a loose association. But like in Young Guns, where they portray them to be these pals, essentially, and then now turned adversaries, that's probably more cinema than anything. I don't think there was, other than just an association, there was a friendship by any means between the two.
And just what we're on about Pat Garrett, obviously it mentions, sort of to Garrett's place, and was that a genuine, the meeting of when he shot him allegedly was from the film? Was that something that, is that a place that exists, or is that again a little bit Hollywood sort of license?
I think back to Young Guns, the general story of it is pretty accurate. There's some debate about what might have happened in that dark room and how the events unfolded.
Yeah.
But no, it really happened. Pat Garrett went to Fort Sumner looking to find Billy, knew that Billy was sort of friends with a gentleman named Pete Maxwell. Well, more so, Billy was friends with Pete Maxwell's daughter.
Yeah.
Paulita Maxwell. And I think Garrett walked into Maxwell's room in the middle of the night looking for Billy. And he just hit a stroke of luck. It's the luckiest he'd ever been in his damn life. He's sitting there talking to Pete, and in walks the guy. And I don't know who was more scared probably in that moment, Garrett or the kid, but Garrett got to his gun first.
Wow.
Yeah. So in terms of, you talk about that there, like who was the most scared. Billy the Kid had a reputation, it was portrayed in the films, but he was certainly, the fact that we're still talking about him 140 years later tells you that the guy clearly had a very, very serious reputation for being, this ruthless gunsmith or what have you. How much of that is true? Do you know, and or do you think?
I think a good amount of it is true. Billy certainly was no saint. I mean, he was not shy about his cattle thievery. He was not shy about some of the things that he had to do to survive in the era. I wouldn't certainly portray him as a Robin Hood. I think some movies have tried to portray him as this Robin Hood-esque character, and I don't think that's a true.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes from Billy the Kid is, "I've been about Billy the whole time," and he was not shameful or he was unabashed about the fact that he cared about himself. He was a selfish little scoundrel in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and he was a dangerous guy. He did kill a lot of people. But I think there was also a very human side to Billy. There's stories of Billy really entertaining children and going to dances, and he was a little bit of a ladies' man and a jokester, and so there's plenty of human stories that make him kind of I think, as a likable guy. He's probably a pretty damn cool guy to have a beer with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, in terms of, I say, obviously Billy and his background. Then, is there any history, and do you know the history of his lineage as such? His mum and his dad, and what led him to the life that he became effectively.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite part about Billy's story. I think it's weird that everybody has a little niche about Billy's life that really sort of like pulls them in. And
Yeah.
mine has always been the obsession with Billy as a kid and where he grew up and where he came from. And it's probably the least known. We don't really know where he was born. The assumption is New York. But that's largely an assumption. I think it would not surprise me if some bit of history came out and he was from some other random place.
Yeah.
Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
We know he spent some time in Indiana, very briefly, as a young man. Wichita was a largely documented time in his life where his mom sort of flourished. And then they moved to, disappeared for about a couple of years, Santa Fe, Silver City, New Mexico. And then that's really where Billy's story began. His mom died, tuberculosis. She was probably about 45 or so. Billy
Right.
was 10, 11 years old, maybe-ish. And his stepdad, who his mom had married just a few years earlier, just disappeared and left Billy and his brother alone, two young kids in the streets of Silver City, which was, hell, it was a rough town at the time. I mean, it was a mining camp, essentially, and they had to survive. And that's, I think, is really what created Billy, is the death of his mom. And he's out there just, I mean, stealing. Like, the first crime he committed was he robbed a laundromat, a Chinese laundromat, and got busted with the goods, locked up in jail. Like, I mean, they just locked up this 11-year-old boy in a jail with these adults, and he climbed out of the fucking chimney and disappears. In that, so that was Billy's first crime, was robbing a laundromat.
Wow.
Just trying to survive.
Was it older brother or younger brother then, did you say?
Yeah, older brother.
Older
Well,
brother.
so there's some debate over that. I think most people assume that he was probably an older brother, but there's some camps that believe differently. Not well documented.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of a nod, isn't there, into that story in the Young Guns film, when the Lawrence Murphy with the Chinese girl that he has for house entertainment, who he took because his shirt was ruined in a Silver City laundromat. So, you know what I mean? I always think that's a little bit of a nod to that story, whether it's intentional or not. I don't know.
You know, I would like to ask John Fusco, was that like an intentional nod, or was that an incidental, like, but
Yeah,
coincidental.
coincidence. Yeah, coincidental. Well, I mean, Adam is very much like, no, I think it, no, yeah. Well, yeah. The romantic in you would think it is, but we'll see.
Yeah,
you're not the pessimist you pretend to be, Beans. I see you got
only when it suits him.
Yeah,
a little bit of a dreamer there. Now, that story of him taking the girl doesn't have any historical basis. That was Hollywood. I've never read anything to support that, but I wonder if they thought, well, this is a nod to Billy's history in Silver City. And so I don't know. That's a cool idea, maybe. I'll have to ask John Fusco if I ever get the chance.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's a question that does need asking. You know, I still believe it. I still believe it. Yeah. Yeah. So those, the idea then, like, about his family. Well, the one thing that is hinted to and is alluded to in those films is that he was educated, that, you know, he had that ability to read when so many of the other regulators, you know, they portrayed Dirty Steve in the film struggling to read the newspaper. There's the idea that Billy the Kid had an education beforehand, isn't there?
There is. I think especially in that era, it was to be able to read and write was not extremely common. And Billy could certainly write and pretty well. We have, you know, 8 or 9 different letters written by Billy, and I've read them. I have copies of them, and he's fairly articulate with good spelling, and he could write in a certain type. He had a penmanship, um, and it's escaping, but it's a type of cursive. And I'll think of the name probably after we're done chatting. But there was a type of cursive that he used that his mother also used that was typically only utilized by people that had some degree of formal education.
Yeah.
Now it's just hypothetically speaking, but that would lead credence to the fact that Billy was probably educated well, or at least to a degree. We know he attended school in Silver City. We got a photograph of one of his teachers, so he had some education certainly, and he could read and write well.
Yeah. So, like Gaz asked, you know, you were interested in his family
Yeah.
lineage there. Interestingly enough, there's no known family lineage afterwards. Nothing to suggest that he ever had children. But I do wonder if his brother. Do you know anything of his brother as to whether he potentially could, so that DNA could be carried on somewhere?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So there's some speculation. We know he married, and I believe is the story Josie was his brother. I had a stepdaughter, but we don't know that he had any natural children. And unfortunately, Josie had an interesting life. He didn't fare very well. He was a gambler, a drinker. He died in Denver, and when he died, they donated his body to science. You know, like a lot of people donate their body, and
Yeah.
the medical students practice, and then they cremate them, and that's what happened to his brother after he died. He was donated to a medical school in Denver, and we know the medical school, and we have done the research. An interesting tidbit of information: we've done the research, and we know where the remains were probably interned. So we're working with the medical school and trying to figure out a way to mark that permanently and sort of confirm that Josie is Billy's brother. So hopefully in the future, one of our projects we'd like to do is to permanently mark where Billy the Kid's brother is likely interned. We know the area. I mean, could I walk you to the spot and say he's below here? No, but I could take you to the block, the field, the spot of land where all of
Yeah.
those people from that area are there.
That's incredible. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Incredible. And I suppose you and your history and watching the films and how much, I suppose, how much time can you dedicate to this? I mean, I again, Jeremiah, I don't know you know, in terms of like a regular job. How much is this this your job? Is this just like a hobby, a pastime? Like, you know, like you must be a very, very busy man.
This is an unhealthy obsession. I don't say that lightly. I work full time. Um, I'm pretty active. I'm sort of a business person. I own some small businesses, and I have a regular job, and I'm pretty active. My brother is who I run this with, and who's equally as active as I am. He's a full time law enforcement officer in Texas.
Right.
So this is not our full time job, but I dare say it takes up a full time amount of ours. I would be willing to get. We probably spend at least a couple, 2 or 3 hours a day doing this. That's embarrassing to say out loud, but it's an obsession. We spend a lot of time.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. Look, to me, people that have an interest, a hobby, a fascination, or whatever you want to call it, and are able to dedicate that and speak so passionately about it is, to me, is amazing and is incredible. So I mean, hats off to you, Jeremiah, and it is incredible. What is it that you? No, this is going to sound like a shitty question. Not what do you hope to get out of it, but what is it that, you know, what more is there that keeps driving you to keep doing the things that you do? Because you know loads about Billy the Kid, you know loads about his family, you know loads about what is it that keeps driving you about to continue to do it?
Yeah, no, that's not a shitty question at all. That's a really good question, actually. It's a little personal, you know. So me and my brother, we grew up, we watched Young Guns, and we kind of grew up on a little bit of land in New Mexico. So I was born in Las Vegas, New Mexico.
Right.
Billy was housed in jail in Las Vegas, and so there's like I grew up in Billy the Kid country with my brother. I was born there, so I've
Yeah.
got a tie to it. And when we grew up, man, me and my brother, God, my mom ever listens to this, she's gonna shit. But we take our BB guns because we had BB guns as kids, right? And
Nice.
I was Pat Garrett, and he was Billy the Kid, and we
Oh,
would go
brilliant.
out for the day, right? And we would set up barricades, and we would just try to smoke each other out. We're shooting each other with BB guns. There's no eye protection. We're just living dangerous, right?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
kids, and God, if my mom, we'd take like fireworks and make like smoke bombs, and like we're trying to flush each other out. We're
It sounds
reenacting the Lincoln
incredible, by
County
the way.
War.
Brilliant.
I don't condone any of this, children. This is not what I suggest you do with your children. So if you're listening at home, kids, don't ever do this. But yeah, so I grew up doing this. So this was something that was shaped my childhood with my brother. And you know, as we got older, we sort of just continued this. And then about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, almost now, my brother calls me and he's like, what if we did this as a nonprofit? You know, here in America, we have the IRS and you can get nonprofit tax deduction status and we get donations. And what if we just started like doing this stuff as a business? And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So I formed the entity and we set up the
Yeah.
business. It's a functioning nonprofit organization. And we just started finding like-minded came in and uh, people just started helping us along the way. And we started putting up these monuments. And so the goal, to make a long story short about me and my brother shooting each other with BB guns, we just wanted to make sure that the next generation, that kids would hear about this and have the same childhood that we had, and they would be able to like fall in love with the same stories and you know
Yeah.
and grow up the way we grew up and be passionate about something that was cool.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Genuinely amazing. Like a brilliant story. And you know, I say, you know, growing up in the, I mean, you know, me and Adam, you know, born in '73, so growing up in sort of, you know,
Hmm.
the mid '80s, late '80s, early '90s, you know, you're like, that's what you did. You just went outside
Yeah.
and pissed about. You know, you didn't sit in front of a screen because you didn't have one. You just
No.
went and made dens, and you jumped streams and rivers and all of those sorts of things, and that's just what you did.
I'm
We
not gonna
did.
lie. I used to piss around with BB guns myself a little bit when I was a kid. I actually accidentally shot myself with one of them. I gotta tell you, them things hurt.
You're damn right they hurt. We used to pack our lunch. We'd get up early in the morning. We'd pack lunches, and we would just be off, just fucking around all day, shooting
Yeah,
each other, building forts, and like just having manhunts.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it was just a thing we did.
But I
And
can
we just
imagine that
didn't
being
care,
just
man.
like the most amazing time. You know, it's just like, well, you know, we'll build this here and we'll recreate this place, and we'll
Yeah.
and you've got to defend it, and I'll attack it, and then when we've done with that, we'll go somewhere else and we'll do it again. But we'll
Do it again.
do something slightly different. We'll build a different place. Sounds
Mhm.
incredible.
And tomorrow we'll wake up and we'll do that shit all over
It's
again.
all over again, all over again.
It's living the dream, and like you say, Billy the Kid. I get it because even just the name, the Kid, it's almost like a Peter Pan story about that kid who never grew up.
Mhm.
Okay, he never got the opportunity to grow up because unfortunately Pat Garrett shot him. But you know, there's that little bit inside all of us who's a kid who's never grown up. You know, I love it. You know, my daughter often asks me to tell her stories about, you know, when I was a kid. I haven't told her about
Yeah.
the time I shot myself with a BB gun just yet. She's only 9. She doesn't need to hear about stuff like that. I don't want my wife to hear about it because I was telling her the other day I wanted to pick up an air rifle and she was having none of that.
You know, you're not the most coordinated guys at the best of times, are you? So, you know.
Oh no! But taking it back to Billy the Kid and those times, you know, like I think we're very lucky. We're very lucky to grow up in the times that we did. You know, we could do the dumb stuff that we did and still live to tell the tales. You know, I suspect you may be a little bit younger than the two of us, or either that we haven't fared quite as well, whichever way.
I've aged well.
Yeah. But tell us a little bit about Billy the Kid's times. Those Lincoln County wars. What was it like living in those times?
You know, I've often wondered, God, that must have been a really hard time. Because you watch the movies and it's always sunny in 75, but I've spent a lot of time in Lincoln, New Mexico, in Fort Sumner. And I'm going to tell you, there's like 2 days out of the year where the weather's tolerable. It's either dead ass cold or, you know, incredibly hot.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I could imagine life was really, really hard in that era. Uh, Food was hard to come by, conditions were tough, and so carving a life out there had to be really, really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. How did just moving on from that? How other than potentially the obvious answer, which would be, heisting various things. How did Billy the Kid and how did they make a living then? What did they do like day to day to day to day to day to survive? Because yeah, you look at the films and you think, okay, they could have
Mhm.
robbed banks, they could have done this, they could have done that, but how did they survive day to day?
There's a Billy the Kid quote, and he was towards the end of after the Lincoln County War was kind of settling down, and some of the regulars were trying to convince him to go off and do other things, and he said, "No, I think I'll just stay here and steal me a living."
Right? Yeah.
And so that was it. I mean, that cattle thievery. Billy was a well documented gambler and cattle thief, and I think that was probably likely Billy's big source of income
Yeah.
was stealing horses, cattle, and gambling. That was how Billy survived, and that was how a lot of regulators they would have part time jobs, usually sheep, cattle, horses,
Yeah.
but a lot of it
Yeah.
was horse thievery. Billy would steal horses over in New Mexico, and he would bring them over towards Amarillo, the Texas side, and he had a connection there, and he would sell
Wow.
horses, stolen cows, like thievery.
Yeah. And it must be, I suppose, if you do that and you're very successful at that, it must have been, I say awful, horrendous, just to have that constant having to watch over your shoulder because the law were tracking, the law were chasing you every single day, just like day in, day out, just worrying about, where you've been and what you've done and who's watching you and potentially where you're going, who's ahead of you and what they're looking forward to. That must have been a really difficult part of the psyche, I suppose, to understand, like
hmm
to continue to do it and worry about the consequences.
I think that had to be frightening to stay in survival mode 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his whole life was in survival mode from the time his mother died when he was a preteen till his death at 21. He was perpetually in survival mode. There
Yeah.
was no point of his life that was probably ever easy.
And that's like I can't comprehend that. Just day after day after day after day,
Mhm.
just being in that, I suppose, that fight or flight mode. And obviously he chose a lot of the fight mode, but that constant cortisol in your brain, that constant just like
Mhm.
state of just high anxiety is a shit, like what's going on sort of thing. Must have been horrendous.
And I've always wondered, after Billy the Kid escaped from the courthouse when he was sentenced to hang, he kills Bell and Ollinger and he escapes, and like I've always wondered, Billy was fluent in Spanish, well connected with the Hispanic community. He had been to Mexico. Why the hell didn't he just ride down to Mexico,
Yeah.
restart a life somewhere down there, and grow up as an old man, marry a senorita, have a bunch of kids? But he stayed right where he was comfortable, and he stayed where he was a wanted man. He never left, and I wonder,
Yeah.
like, maybe he was comfortable, but I mean, maybe he just liked that shit.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and is he, I say, an adrenaline junkie type thing? Some people just do that, don't they? They just constantly live for that
hmm
feeling of I suppose kill or be killed, I suppose. And that's what it was like.
Well, to quote the film, Gaza, you got to test yourself every day.
Absolutely. What is it? If you test yourself every day, and if you don't, you'll get slow, and that's when they'll get you, or words to that
Yeah.
effect, something like that. Yeah.
Hell, that's the
That's a
test
great
of all
line.
tests.
Yeah.
That's a test of all tests.
That's it. I much prefer the. I'd rather drink turpentine and piss on a brush fire or whatever it was from that
I
film.
ain't touching it.
That's my favorite quote for the film. It's brilliant.
One of those bits in those films, the Bob Olinger story. Share that one with us again, because there does appear to be some element of truth in that, doesn't it? That one's quite close.
I think there was a lot of truth to at least the sentiment towards between Bob and Billy. What a lot of people don't know is Bob Ollinger was an asshole, well documented, just a real dick. And the history between him and Billy kind of probably go back well before most any war. Bob Ollinger was a bad man. Don't let the fact that he was a law enforcement officer for a period. He was a bad man. He had murdered a guy, shot him in the back, killed him, and that guy was reportedly one of Billy's friends. So long before Billy sort of life started spiraling out of control, him and Bob were enemies. And then Bob Ollinger gets hired as a U.S. Marshal and is charged with being one of the marshals that escorts Billy after he's captured, escorts him to trial. He's convicted. And then Bob Ollinger is charged with guarding him in the courthouse. So there's bad blood. And then Billy talked about, and there's documented that Ollinger just taunted him. The whole time they're escorting him to hang, to trial, Ollinger's just treating him like shit. So Billy exacted his revenge, man, and it's probably one of the coolest Billy stories. He overpowers Bell, kills Bell, and and kind of way they describe it in Young Guns, where Ollinger's running across the street and Billy's standing at the window, and he's like, "Hey Bob," and just unloads 2 barrels in Bob, and that's almost probably likely exactly how it happens.
Yeah.
The only thing that Young Guns doesn't tell, which I think is a cool fact, is Billy, after he shoots Bob, and the townspeople are out there, so it's seen, he breaks the shotgun over the window seal and then throws the damn shotgun at Bob and says something to the fact that you're never going to taunt me with this again, and throws the damn shotgun at Bob. I don't know why they didn't put it in the movie. That would have been even
that would be so cool.
They
That would be so good, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do know that building as well, like where he shot Bell.
Yeah.
They've looked at the building. There is, where it allegedly happened at the base of the staircase there. There is a sample of blood that's still there, isn't there? That's still on those walls and floor, allegedly.
Well, that's hotly debated. And we've talked, I've actually written several articles on this. I don't necessarily believe that there's any blood still there. Now, I think there was blood there. That's well documented. Sophie Poe was kind of the lady that was charged with cleaning all that up. And she wrote about how it was just saturated with blood. The problem is the courthouse has been remodeled several times. It's probably had about 4 or 5 revisions to it. And it loosely still follows the floor plan. The stairs have been adjusted a little bit that you remember from the movie. It's pretty close. It's pretty damn close.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was once blood stains there. Are they still soaking the boards? I don't think it's the original boards, but shit, I don't know 100%. It's possible.
How close, in terms of obviously the film and the film reenactments as such, how close were the sets that the films recreated to actually the environments and the areas that obviously Billy the Kid was involved in? So you look at the saloons and the bars and the houses, and was that quite accurate or not?
It depends. Not a ton.
Right.
I think they did an okay job at the courthouse.
Yeah.
If you've ever been to the Lincoln County Courthouse and kind of seen it, they did an okay job. I think that wasn't too terrible. Now, one of my favorite scenes, being a young man, if you remember in Young Guns, when they're at the Great House Saloon. Of course, it's Jane Greathouse, and she rides out nude on that horse.
Yeah.
Which is a young man of about 12 years old. When I watched that, I probably rewinded that an unhealthy amount of times. I remember there in my VCR, rewind, pause. I'm like, where slowly creeping the video forward, hoping to see more than I've seen the time before.
Frame.
Yeah. And I was like, God, Jane Greathouse, what a peach. But anyways, I've digressed. That scene.
You went off in a moment there. You were like, oh, I remember.
You can see it.
Living my childhood.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That scene was that was probably the most unrealistic of the movies. Jane Greathouse was not Jane. Jane was a man in real life.
Yeah, you don't want that vision in your mind. I'll be honest with you.
I'm not sure I'm ready to let that go, but unfortunately, history tells us otherwise.
Yeah. You just ruined that for me.
And I'm sorry I did that. Trust me, I was sad when it got ruined for me too. Still grieving.
Yeah. But White Oaks was a real place as well, though, wasn't it? Am I right in saying?
Yeah, White Oaks is a real place. It's still very much in existence. I was just in White Oaks maybe 6 months ago. Some of the most of the structures don't stand today. A great flood came through there and sort of rerouted the town a little bit and washed away a lot of where some of the things stand. But you can still go to the cemetery there in White Oaks. Like Susan McSween is buried there. Deputy Bell is buried there. So yeah, absolutely. You can go to White Oaks. It's considered a ghost town. They
Yeah.
got the No Scum Allowed Saloon. You should Google it. It's open like 1 day a week in this ghost town. It's this biker bar, and damn, it's a cool time. You should go. If you're ever
Wow.
in White Oaks, stop by the No
Wow.
Scum Allowed Saloon and have a beer in White Oaks, New
That
Mexico.
sounds like a cool place, I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Whether we get in or not,
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. But
Yeah. Speak for yourself on that one. So yeah, that Gaz has touched on it there a little bit. So I like the idea of visiting these places. So just to put a bit of context, this. So my cousin Bo, he's a law enforcement officer in Texas as well, in San Antonio. So his next door neighbor, also in law enforcement, Kevin. So he was a tutor, and he did some training courses, and he lived for a long time out in Long Beach in California. He's retired now. But when he used to travel from Texas out there, he'd stay out there for a couple of months. And he drove back, never flew, he drove back. And I questioned him about this, and he loves that drive himself. And Bo's done it with him. My cousin Bo's done it with him a couple of times. And they come back in, they come, part of Route 66, and they dip down to New Mexico and they visit some of those places. And I was like, dude, you've got to take me with you one time. He said, yeah, we will. We need to make this happen. I'm going to make sure it happens. Now, my wife mentioned the other day, we got a holiday sorted for 2026. 2027, she says she wants to do San Diego. And I'm thinking, yeah, maybe you could do that. You fly home. It's going to take my 2 kids with him as well. We're going to be 10 and 8, so I'm pushing my luck a lot here. Well, this is my plan to maybe be able to do this next year. Tell us about some of the places then that are still there. If you want to visit and soak up some of that Billy the Kid history firsthand, that'd be well worth a visit.
I think if you got one place to visit, you got to go to Lincoln. It's been remarkably well preserved. There's a unique group of people that live there, and they have kind of fought. If you've ever been to like Tombstone, Arizona, or Kansas City, where they sort of have that cowboy culture, but it's been commercialized.
Yeah.
Lincoln has actively fought that, but they're very active in restoring and sort of keeping the town original and authentic, but it is uncommercialized. I mean, they didn't have internet there till like a few years ago. You didn't get phone reception there till a couple of years ago. I mean, it was literally just it was like freeze framed in time. So you can go walk the street and it's identical almost in condition. I mean, it's paved now, but you can walk the street that Billy can. There's a marker where Sheriff Brady was shot. You can stand at the window where Billy the Kid killed Bell and look down, and there's a marker where Bell's body or where Ollinger's body lie. So you can you can walk through the Tunstall store.
Incredible.
And it's still, I mean, kept pretty close. So a lot of these locations are still there and very well marked. And so you can see all those locations. So if you got one place, you got to go to Lincoln. I mean, there is one of the coolest experiences is you got to walk Lincoln at sundown because the town dies. Nobody's there. All the residents go into their homes and it's quiet. There's no street lights, and you just walk Lincoln at dusk and just imagine what it was in that era. It is the coolest experience.
Wow. And so in terms of Lincoln then, and there must be lots of places in and around, I say Santa Fe, New Mexico, that almost the tourist trap of, oh, Billy the Kid was here and Billy the Kid was there. Like, does that not piss you off quite a lot? Because have you been to those places and gone like, oh, come on, he never did, or he didn't do that, or you're saying he did this, but he never did? Because that must be so frustrating for somebody that, lives and breathes and understands the life that other people, and I get the commercial aspect of it, but it must be frustrating. Billy the Kid pissed up a tree here. Well, he didn't, did he really? You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man. And that must be really frustrating for you.
There's a lot of that, but honestly, I welcome it. And I think any attention that history gets is good attention, because I was brought in by a Hollywood movie that's probably less than accurate, and that's what hooked me, right? Young Guns, I watched a shitty Hollywood movie, and it hooked me, and now I can't get enough of this stuff. So I think if there's some weird cartoon that some kid sees, he'll go, oh, that Billy the Kid. That's cool.
Yeah.
I want to know more. So any attention, like they say in Hollywood, any publicity is good publicity. So in my opinion, anything that puts the name out there that might grab somebody is an opportunity to keep the history alive.
Yeah, and I suppose in a way, never really thought about it like that. I suppose you would be like, oh my God, that's so untrue. But hey, I don't give flying fudge because actually it's people are talking about Billy the Kid, so that's fine.
There's an element to me that goes, oh Lord, that's less than historically accurate.
Because I'd be like, no, excuse me, that's actually not accurate. No, actually, and trying to put them right in a way, but it would irk me a little bit, I suppose.
The pedant in you.
Yeah.
The courthouse where Billy the Kid stood trial, it's in Italia, and it's just north of El Paso, to give you like across the New Mexico border.
Yeah.
And it's owned by a family that runs a gift shop. And you can still go there, and you can stand in the spot where Billy probably stood when he was convicted. But you're going to stand there, and there's going to be, a Billy the Kid T-shirt and a Billy the Kid slingshot, and it's every trinket imaginable. And so part of that makes me go, wow.
Yeah. You see, I'd be like that, but, oh, come on, Matt, come on.
But it brings people in, and they experience it, and maybe somebody will fall in love with the story. But yeah, I do agree that I'm like, oh man, you could buy Billy the Kid underwear in this place.
Yeah, let's not go there. It's a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
You can tuck your regulator in there.
It'll hide my tattoo well.
I actually follow that store on Instagram.
Oh, you don't, do you? Oh, no.
Yeah, I do. I apologize.
And the guy that owns it is a good guy. We're friends with him. He just opened a store in Lincoln as well, to bring a little bit of Billy the Kid memorabilia to Lincoln. And there's a super cool brewery in Lincoln that I recommend stopping in. It's good for a beer, and you can enjoy a beer in Lincoln.
You don't have to recommend that one twice.
No,
I do like a beer. It has to be said. That's definitely on the list. That's definitely on the list. So one of the other places I had noted as well, there's a Billy the Kid museum as well that claims to have some of the authentic things that Billy the Kid owned. How what's the provenance on that? Can it be proved?
That's a tough one. So the museum probably references in Fort Sumner.
Yeah,
it's right there by the grave, which is a good place to visit. You can see the grave. There's quite a few people from Billy the Kid history that are buried in that area, Maxwell's and things like that. And you can walk to the kill site where the Maxwell house once stood. And so you can kind of make that walk where Billy's body was carried to the woodshed, where he was kind of prepped for burial and then taken to the grave. And so, that's a good place to visit. The things that are in the museum, well, there's probably only a couple of items. They claim to have Billy the Kid's hair.
Yeah.
It's weird. I will say not good. Really, the only artifacts that we know of is the photo, the knife he was carrying the night he was killed, the butcher knife. The shotgun that he used against Ollinger is still out there, and the rifle that he had when he escaped. We know where that's at too. All four of those items. Those are the big Billy the Kid items that are out there that we know the provenance is good.
Okay.
Interesting.
So anything else like, he used this pistol, or like this was the one that he carried with him all the time? Yeah, pish. That, like, ten a penny, he'll throw that one away and grab this one or whatever.
And that's a lot of what it was. Is I wish I could say, man, this was Billy the Kid's pistol, but he was captured, arrested so many times, and they kept the weapons. Like there was not like if you got arrested today, they're going to give you your stuff back.
You release tomorrow, but here's your pistol. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Man. So he changed weapons so many times. There was one singular weapon that was like, oh, this was Billy's pistol. His hands probably touched many pistols in his lifetime, and where those ended up, I don't know. We know where the gun is that killed Billy the Kid. That's still established provenance and can be tracked. We know where that's at. And most of those actually most of those remain in the hands of Bill Koch. You could probably Google him. He's a ultra wealthy history aficionado and history buff.
Right.
That he soaked up. He owned the tintype. He's the one that bought the tintype for $2.6 million.
Right. Is that like a private collection then, and that's what he's got? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And he's getting a little bit older, so the whole worry is what's going to happen when Bill's probably I think he's probably pushing late 80s, 90s. Wow. So what's going to happen to his collection when he goes, because he is the holder of the largest Billy the Kid collection? Well, he's got almost anything of value that's Billy related right now.
Really?
In his private collection. Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, I think you need to meet him. I think you need to try and get a meeting.
He hasn't taken my calls yet.
I was going to say,
I'm optimistic.
Yeah. Hi.
I've been ringing him for a while now.
Awesome.
His people haven't responded to my people.
Exactly. By your people, you mean your brother, and by his people, all those
100%.
amazing 1,000 lawyers he's probably got with him or whatever it may be. But hey, it'll happen.
That's correct.
Manifest it. It will happen, I'm sure.
It's 100 against
I'm optimistic.
Beautiful. Very good. Very clever.
You like that one? Yeah. So I mean, we wrap these things up round about the hour mark. Before we let you go, though, we need to give you the opportunity to give a shout out to your website, to the YouTube page as well, Chasing Billy. Where can people find you on social media as well?
Yeah, so you can check us out. Our website is btkcoalition.com. We keep a blog, a store. We are a nonprofit, so 100% of the proceeds go to helping us mark and restore and save history. We've published 6 or 7 books. We've put up markers, gravestones. We've had a lot of projects. You can check those out on the website. That's a great way to connect with us. You can also find a lot of our history on YouTube. We run a regular YouTube show on there called Chasing Billy. We do live episodes and shorts, and we document Billy the Kid history live on YouTube. So you can check us out at both those places. Interact with us, engage, buy some of our merch. It definitely helps. It lessens the financial burden on me and my brother. And it's also a tax deduction. So go out there, do the right thing, and help us save history.
Yeah, amen. No, that is great advice. I follow you on YouTube. I did that today. And like you say, if you go onto that website and you take a look, we'll add that to the show notes. You can have a look at some of the projects that they've undertaken on there. And it really, really is not just impressive, but worthwhile as well. I mean, there's an old saying where, if you don't learn from the mistakes of history and yada, 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 that it's really, really important that we keep history like this alive and we learn from it so that we don't make the mistakes of the past. But at the same time, this is a little bit of where our country came from and your country came from, you know what I mean? In terms of the USA, this is a big part of it, you know what I mean? We sent some people over there. We sent a lot of Irish people over there. A lot of those people were involved in some of these wars. And, maybe we'll do another episode in the future where we look at, those links to the UK and those links to Ireland and, who knows who's related to whom. But it's really, really important to keep it alive. So yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful job that you do, and I'm so happy that we stumbled across you, and I'm so happy that you agreed to come on to our humble little podcast and share the story for us. It really, really has been a very interesting hour, hasn't it, Gaza?
Oh, look, I'm like a kid in a candy shop. I'm literally like I can't believe it's an hour and 3 minutes long. Like we could have gone on for a lot longer. Jeremiah, thank you very much for your insights into Billy the Kid. It's similar to myself and Beans, just in terms of we stumbled across Young Guns back in the day, and it was like, whoa, wow, who's this guy? And the last hour has been incredibly insightful, educational, and thoroughly enjoyed your company, enjoyed your chat. It's been an incredible podcast. So just thank you very much for your time that you've given us, and I can't thank you enough.
So if you'd like to say your goodbyes to our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me on, guys. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. It gives me an opportunity to talk about Billy the Kid and something that I've enjoyed since I was a kid with people that may never have heard his story. So thanks so much, guys. This hour helps us keep history alive, and we appreciate it so much.
No, amen. That is a really important way to end it, isn't it? Thinking about keeping history alive. So thank you very much for those who've tuned in and listened. We will wish you a fond farewell, and we will be back next week when we'll be talking about something entirely different. Good night.
Friends around the mic, kicking back, all right. Day turns into night, podcast in the spotlight. Sipping on that brew, talking all